So while we're cleaning up, why don't we go ahead and add a footer? We haven't added a footer yet to our site, but we know the footer is being called on pretty much every page template. What I mean by that is if we go over here, make sure you're in WP content, and then inside themes, and then custom theme. Okay, if we look at our other page templates like page home, we're saying get footer. In our index file, we're saying get footer, and so on. So we're pretty much calling this just like the header in pretty much every single page. So let's go find our footer. We'll double click it. So this is the code that's getting injected with that get footer function that we're using in the templates. So let's add some footer code in here. So I'm going to tab inward, and I'm just going to say footer, the HTML tag for footer, and then I'll just put some dummy text in there. So if I save that and I go over here and I refresh, there it's kind of showing up on the left. Let's style it a little bit to look more like a traditional footer and make sure it kind of sticks to the bottom. So we can do that pretty easily. If we go in here and we say, okay, div, and give it a class of container, and then we'll put the dummy text in there. So I'll hit save, pause as you need to, make sure your server is running, and then go over here and refresh. And there we go. Now it's lined up with all of our content. Now let's get it to stick to the bottom. We can do that with some HTML, or sorry, some CSS. So I'm going to open up our style sheet here. And what I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to say ID equals site footer, so that we have an ID in there to target it. So I'm going to save that. Go over here. And the way you target classes is with this dot syntax. The way you target IDs is different. You use this pound sign. And we called it site footer. Make sure you spell it exactly like you described it in these quotes in here. Okay, so I'm going to go over here now, and in curly braces, I'm going to add a few rules. I'm going to say position absolute. I'm going to say bottom, set it equal to 0. And that's going to get it to stick down to the bottom. Okay, so if I go over here now and I refresh, there, now it's kind of stuck to the bottom there. And then in here we'll also say width 100%. Height, we'll give it a height of 60 pixels. And then we'll give it a background color of this kind of gray. We can get that with F5, 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 like that. So if I save that now, I go over here and I refresh, there, now we've got a footer in there. And we can also do something else. We can add kind of a border, a darker gray border to the top of it. So if we go over here and we say border dash top, and then we say 1 pixel solid light gray. I think you can spell it like that. Let me save that, and then go over here and refresh. And there we go, it's added this light gray. If that light gray doesn't work for you in your browser, you may want to change it out to a hexadecimal value like that. Something that's just darker than what this is. And if you're curious to kind of find these hexadecimal values, an application like Photoshop by Adobe can do that. But you can also look up Adobe Color. And color.adobe.com will take you to this color wheel, which is super useful. And you can kind of play around and you'll get those hexadecimal values when you change around any of these sliders here. Okay, so you can find your grays or whatever using this. Maybe go to monochromatic or shades. You can find it if you just kind of play around with this stuff. So that's a good way to kind of explore the different colors that you have access to. There's like a gray right there. Okay, so let's keep on styling our footer so that it looks a little better. So right now the text kind of lines up across the top. Let's go in here and let's give it a padding at the top so it doesn't do that. So we'll say padding dash top, and we'll just say something like 10 pixels, See what that looks like. So if I save that, and I go over here and I refresh, there we go. It's a little bit lower. We'll go a little bit further than 10 pixels. We'll just say something like 16 pixels. If I save that, go over here and refresh. That's a little bit more centered. We'll leave that. And then for the content of the footer, you can really put whatever you want. You could make this a lot taller than 60 pixels, which is how we have it right now. And you could put things like your brand name. You could put your website links. You could also make it a widgetized area. We learned about sidebars and widgets. So you could create a widget area here and inject that widget in there. So what I'm going to do is just kind of borrow from the other theme. You know, I'm going to look at 2016. You can kind of look from a different theme. And I'm just going to copy some of their code from their footer. So under the 2016 theme, if I go to footer, I double click that, I will see here down at the bottom, I can kind of grab this code. And I'll show you what this code does. I'm going to grab that and copy it. So just those two lines of code where it says span and then A, now right down near the bottom there. So grab that code, and then we'll go to our footer. I'll close off theirs, and in here I'll paste it in. Okay, so that's quite a bit of code. I'm going to break it out into multiple lines so you can see, and you can do this as well. So I'm going to go over here and kind of find where the code is breaking out. So there's a span tag right here. So I'm going to break that out. Then it goes into an anchor tag. And that goes to about right there. So break that out. And then there's the closing anchor tag. There's the closing span tag. So that looks like our triangular shape that we get with HTML. Let's do the same thing here. So there's an anchor tag. It looks like it ends right here. We'll break that out and break this out and kind of bring these back one level like that. So now if I save this and I go over here and I refresh, there we go. We're getting our site name, and we're also getting this kind of little call out that WordPress puts, and it links to the WordPress site. You could change this stuff to whatever you want, but I just wanted to put some links down here to show you what that would look like. So now our site has more of a kind of standard footer look to it, just by adding that code over here.